Humans became the Galactic Alpha. Part 1. The chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive structure built by the Galactic Council 10,000 years ago. Inside, representatives from 47 different species gathered around a circular table that glowed with soft blue light. They had come to discuss a problem that made most of them uncomfortable. Ambassador stood at his position, his four arms gesturing as he spoke. His species, the consensus, had been part of the council longer than most. They were known for their wisdom and careful thinking. Today, however, felt neither wise nor careful. He felt afraid. "The humans have accepted our invitation," he said. His voice carried through the chamber without need for technology. "They will arrive in 3 cycles." Murmurs rippled through the gathered aliens. Some sounded pleased, most sounded worried. Council member, a floating jellyfish-like creature from the water world of pulsed with orange light. In her species, orange meant concern. "Are we certain this is wise? The reports from the observation teams are disturbing." Couldn't disagree. He had read those reports dozens of times. Earth, the human, was classified as a Class 12. The Council had explored 70,000 planets across the galaxy. Only 300 qualified as Class 12. Of those, only Earth had produced a space-faring civilization. The numbers still shocked him. Earth's gravity was 40% higher than the galactic average. Its atmosphere contained oxygen levels that would poison most Council species within hours. The planet experienced temperature swings that ranged from killing heat to lethal cold. Weather patterns shifted with violent unpredictability. Earthquakes shattered the ground. Volcanoes reshaped the landscape. And there were predators everywhere. Yet humans hadn't just survived. They had conquered their world completely. "What choice do we have?" asked Merchant Prince, a bear-like creature covered in golden fur. "They have discovered faster-than-light travel on their own. They have reached their neighboring planets. Within a generation, they will spread beyond their star system. Better to contact them now while we can shape the relationship." "Shape the relationship," pulsed, her color darkening to deep red. "You speak as if we hold power here. Have you seen what they do to each other? Have you read about their wars?" Had read about the wars. That was the part that kept him awake during his rest cycles. The galaxy had been at peace for 12,000 years. Small disputes happened, of course, but actual warfare. That belonged to ancient history, to the barbaric times before the Council brought civilization to the stars. Humans had fought over 6,000 documented wars in their recorded history. Many of those wars had happened simultaneously. Millions had died, sometimes billions. Yet each time they rebuilt, they learned, they grew stronger. "Their wars are in their past," said, though he didn't fully believe it. "They have been at relative peace for nearly a century. They have formed a unified world government. They seek to join the galactic community. We must give them that chance." The Council voted. The decision passed, though not by much. In 3 cycles, humanity would take its first steps onto the galactic stage. 3 cycles later, the human delegation arrived in a ship that made the Council's engineers uncomfortable. It was bulky and crude compared to Council vessels, but it radiated a kind of brutal efficiency. The hull bore scars from micrometeorite impacts that the humans hadn't bothered to repair. Weapons systems dotted the exterior, weapons on a diplomatic vessel, which struck many Council members as deeply strange. Ambassador Sarah led the human delegation. She was tall by human standards, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She wore a simple blue uniform without decoration. Behind her walked 5 other humans, all wearing similar clothing. Greeted them in the docking bay. He had practiced the human gesture of handshaking, though his species had never needed such a custom. Humans, he had learned, were a touch-oriented species. They needed physical contact in ways that made many Council races uncomfortable. Ambassador said, extending one of his 4 arms, "Welcome to Council Station. We are honored by your presence." Gripped his hand firmly. Too firmly, actually, tried not to wince. Humans didn't seem to understand their own strength. "Thank you, Ambassador," said. "We're excited to be here. Humanity has dreamed of this moment for generations." The formal presentation happened in the council chamber. Stood in the center while the 47 species watched, had prepared a speech about mutual cooperation and peaceful exchange. He never got to give it. "We know what you think of us," said, her voice clear and strong. "We've intercepted some of your observation reports. We know you call our world we know you're afraid of us." Silence filled the chamber. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Smiled. It wasn't a threatening expression, but something about it made skin prickle. "You're right to be cautious. Earth is a harsh world. It made us harsh too, but it also made us something else. It made us survivors. It made us innovators. It made us the kind of species that doesn't give up when things get difficult." She gestured and a holographic display appeared. Images from Earth filled the air. Vast cities, towering structures, machines that moved mountains, ships that crossed oceans. And yes, weapons, so many weapons. "Our history is violent," admitted. "We fought each other for resources, for territory, for ideas. Thousands of wars across thousands of years. We're not proud of all of it, but every war taught us something. Every conflict drove innovation. We learned to think strategically, to plan for worst-case scenarios, to never assume victory was guaranteed." More images appeared. Humans in spacesuits exploring dead moons. Humans in protective gear studying active volcanoes. Humans diving into the deepest oceans. Humans in laboratories working on problems that couldn't even understand. "We didn't just survive Earth," continued. "We mastered it. We learned to adapt faster than any threat could evolve. When disease struck, we created medicine. When the climate shifted, we built shelters. When predators hunted us, we hunted them back. And when we finally ran out of challenges on Earth, we looked to the stars." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We know we're different from you. We know our path to the stars was darker and bloodier than yours. But we're here now and we're asking to join you. Not as conquerors, not as a threat, as partners. Because if Earth taught us anything, it's that survival is easier when you work together." The council debated for days. Some species wanted to reject humanity outright. Others saw potential, found himself torn between both views. Humans were dangerous, yes, but danger wasn't the same as evil, and something about words resonated with him. They weren't asking for dominance. They were asking for a chance. In the end, the council voted to accept humanity as provisional members. They would have access to trade, to technology exchange, to diplomatic relations. But they would be watched carefully. Any sign of aggression would result in immediate expulsion. Accepted the terms without complaint. "We understand," she said. "Trust has to be earned. We're prepared to earn it." For 6 months, everything went smoothly. Human traders proved shrewd but fair. Human scientists collaborated eagerly with council researchers. Human diplomats navigated the complex web of galactic politics with surprising skill. Began to relax. Perhaps humanity would integrate peacefully after all. Then the arrived. The attack came without warning. 3 core worlds went dark simultaneously. By the time the council realized what had happened, millions were dead. There were species from beyond the galactic rim, a region the council had never fully explored. They were predators, pure and simple. Massive creatures covered in armor like scales, with claws that could tear through hull metal and teeth designed for rending flesh. They had been watching. While the council lived in peace, they had studied them, learned their weaknesses, prepared their invasion. Now they struck with overwhelming force. The council's peacekeeping fleet responded immediately. They were destroyed within hours. The ships were designed for patrol and policing, not warfare. The crews had trained in simulators, not actual combat. Against they were helpless. Panic spread through council space. Some species began evacuating there. Others locked down their systems and refused all contact. The council chamber, once a place of calm debate, became a scene of chaos. Watched it all with growing despair. The galaxy hadn't faced an existential threat in 12,000 years. They had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten what survival actually meant. Ambassador attended an emergency council session 3 days after the initial attack. She sat quietly while species after species proposed plans that ranged from desperate to delusional. Finally, she stood. "We can help," she said simply. The chamber fell silent. Every alien eye turned toward her. "Humanity volunteers to lead the defense against the," continued. "We have experience in warfare. We understand strategy. We know how to fight enemies that seem overwhelming. Give us command of whatever forces you can muster and we'll stop them." Council member pulsed angry red. "You've been in space for barely a century. You've never faced an alien enemy. What makes you think you can succeed where we have failed?" Met her gaze steadily. "Because war is what we're good at. It's what Earth made us good at. You've had peace for 12,000 years. That's beautiful. That's what we aspire to. But right now you don't need peace. You need warriors, and like it or not, that's exactly what we are." The vote was close. Many council members distrusted humanity. Many more feared what might happen if humans gained military authority. But in the end, fear of the outweighed fear of humanity. Cast his vote in favor. He wasn't sure if he was making the right choice. He wasn't sure if there was a right choice. But as he watched leave the chamber to begin organizing the defense, he felt something he hadn't felt in days. He felt hope. Part 2. Commander Sarah stood on the bridge of the UNSC Defiance, studying the tactical display with eyes that hadn't slept properly in 3 days. The display showed the invasion force as red markers spreading across the galactic map like drops of blood in water. 12 systems occupied. 16 more under siege. Billions dead or enslaved. The Galactic Council had given humanity command of their remaining forces 2 weeks ago, had spent every moment since then trying to understand what they had to work with. The answer was not encouraging. "Tell me again," she said to Commander, her tactical officer. The Council's peacekeeping fleet was how large before they arrived? Glanced at his. Approximately 40,000 vessels across all classes, ranging from patrol ships to heavy cruisers. Total crew complement of 8 million. "And how many do we have now?" 14,000 vessels. Crew complement of 2.8 million. The rest were destroyed in the initial attacks or are trapped in occupied systems. Nodded slowly. She had expected the numbers to be bad. They were worse. They had cut the Council's forces by more than half in less than 3 weeks. At this rate, the galaxy would fall within 6 months. "What about ground forces?" she asked. His expression turned grim. "That's where it gets really ugly. The Council species don't really have armies. Not like we understand them. They have police forces, security teams. Some have ceremonial guards, but actual military ground troops. Barely 50,000 across all species combined." Closed her eyes. 50,000 soldiers to defend thousands of worlds. It would have been funny if it wasn't so horrifying. They really believed war was over forever, didn't they? "Can you blame them?" said quietly. 12,000 years of peace. That's longer than human civilization has existed. Hell, that's longer than humans have been using agriculture. They forgot what survival looks like. Opened her eyes and looked at the tactical display again. They were advancing toward a world called Tertian IV. Intelligence reports said it was a garden world with a population of 4 billion, mostly civilians, mostly defenseless. They would reach it in 8 days. "Gather the senior staff," said. "We're going to Tertian IV." "Ma'am," looked confused. "Our forces aren't ready for a major engagement. The Council crews barely know how to coordinate with each other. Most of them have never fired their weapons outside of drills." "I know," said. "That's why we're not going to fight thee on their terms. We're going to fight them on ours." The Battle of Tertian IV began not with ships in orbit but with humans on the ground. Had ordered 50,000 human marines, every trained soldier Earth could spare to deploy to the planet's surface before they arrived. They brought no heavy weapons, no artillery, no vehicles, just rifles, explosives, and a whole lot of attitude. When they landed, they found a world that looked undefended. The population had evacuated to underground shelters. The city stood empty. Scans showed no military presence. They spread out confidently. They were apex predators from a world even harsher than Earth. They had never known defeat. They moved through the cities in hunting packs, searching for prey to terrorize, resources to claim. That's when the humans started killing them. The first hunting pack died in an ambush 3 kilometers from their landing site. Humans in camouflage erupted from concealed positions, firing armor-piercing rounds from angles they never expected. 20 warriors fell before they even understood they were under attack. The second pack died when they entered a building that humans had rigged with explosives. The structure collapsed on top of them, burying them under tons of rubble. The third pack survived the initial ambush but found themselves cut off from their landing site. Humans had destroyed the bridges behind them, mined the roads ahead of them, and turned every building into a potential death trap. The pack spent 3 days trying to fight their way back to safety. None of them made it. Aboard the flagship, War Leader watched the reports with growing fury. His warriors were the finest killers in their part of the galaxy. They had conquered 17 species before finding the Council. They didn't lose ground battles to primitives. Yet the humans kept killing them, not in glorious combat but through cowardice, through tricks, through refusing to fight with honor. Ordered more troops to the surface, then more still. Each wave landed in the cities. Each wave died in ways that enraged him. Snipers picking off officers from a kilometer away. Booby traps in supply caches. False intelligence that led packs into carefully prepared kill zones. The humans didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like vermin, like prey that had learned to bite back. What his species couldn't understand, was that humans weren't fighting like prey at all. They were fighting like humans, like a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. 2 weeks into the battle, made a mistake. Frustrated by his inability to pin down the human forces, he halved his ships from orbit to deploy more troops on the ground. He believed the battle would be won on the planet's surface. Commander had been waiting for exactly that. The human fleet struck the moment they repositioned, had spent 2 weeks training the Council species in basic human naval tactics. She couldn't teach them everything, but she could teach them enough. Concentrate fire, never fight fair, hit and run, make the enemy react to you, not the other way around. The fleet, caught mid-maneuver, found itself suddenly outnumbered in orbit. Forces swept through them like wolves through sheep. The engagement lasted 6 hours. When it ended, they had lost 30 ships. The Council forces had lost 11. On the ground, the human Marines received a simple order: full assault. They had bled them for 2 weeks, teaching them to fear every shadow, every building, every seemingly innocent pile of rubble. Now they hit them with everything at once. They broke. For the first time in their species' history, their warriors retreated in panic. They fled to their landing sites, scrambled aboard their ships, and ran for the edge of the system. The humans let them go, but not before attaching trackers to their hulls. The Battle of Tertian IV became the turning point. News of the human victory spread through Council space at light speed. Suddenly, the galaxy had hope again. Suddenly, they didn't seem invincible. But knew the war was far from over. Tertian IV had been a success because they had been arrogant and overconfident. They wouldn't make that mistake again. Over the next year, the fighting spread across 24 systems. Trained Council crews relentlessly, teaching them human tactics, human strategies, human ways of thinking about warfare. Most of them struggled. Cooperation came naturally to Council species, but aggression didn't. Violence felt wrong to them on a deep, instinctual level. But they learned. Slowly, painfully, they learned. The turning point came when received intelligence about this location. The trackers from Tertian IV had done their job. Humanity now knew where the enemy came from. Called a meeting of her senior staff. Every human face in the room looked exhausted. They had been fighting for 14 months without rest. Casualty rates among human forces had reached 40%. By Council standards, that number was catastrophic. By human standards, it was acceptable. "I want to take the war to their home," said without preamble. "I want to attack Prime." The room erupted in objections. It was suicide, they said. That would be the most heavily defended place in their entire empire. The casualties would be unspeakable. Waited for them to finish. Then she spoke quietly. "They are predators, they're hunters. Everything about their psychology is built around attacking from a position of strength. They've never had to defend their home before. They don't know how." "Neither do we," someone shouted. "None of us have ever assaulted a heavily fortified world." "Yes, we have," said D-Day, the Normandy landings, the invasion of Berlin. Humanity has been fighting amphibious assaults against fortified positions for centuries. It's one of the things we're actually good at. She brought up a tactical display of they're predators, but they're also parents. They have young. They have breeding grounds. They have places they care about defending. That makes them vulnerable. We hit them where they live, where their children are, and we force them to make a choice. Keep fighting us across the galaxy or come home to protect their families." Stared at the display for a long moment. Then he started to smile. "You magnificent bastard. You're going to make them feel what the Council species felt. You're going to make them afraid." "Exactly," said. "The assault on Prime took 6 months to plan. Assembled every ship she could spare, every Marine who could still fight, every weapon humanity and the Council could produce. She trained them until they could coordinate amphibious landings in their sleep. She drilled them until human and alien crews could work together seamlessly. They never saw it coming. The invasion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Every ship, every soldier, everything humanity and the Council could muster for one massive, all-or-nothing strike. The fleet scrambled to respond. They outnumbered forces 2-1, but had spent 18 months learning how they thought, how they fought, how they reacted to threats. She knew their patterns. She knew their weaknesses. The battle raged for 3 days. Ships burned in the void. Thousands died every hour. But slowly, inevitably, the human-led forces pushed forward. On the 4th day, human Marines landed on Prime. They hit the breeding grounds first, not to kill the young, had issued strict orders against that, but to threaten them, to make it clear that humanity could reach them, to make them feel what terror actually meant. On the 5th day, the matriarch sued for peace. Not to the Galactic Council, to humanity. Commander stood in the communications room of the Defiance, looking at the holographic image of the Supreme Matriarch. The creature was massive, easily 3 times size, covered in scars from countless battles. "You fight like demons," the matriarch said. Her voice was surprisingly soft. "You fight without honor, without mercy. You sacrifice your own kind in numbers that shame us." "We fight to protect our friends," said simply. "We fight to survive. That's all we've ever known how to do." The matriarch's eyes, dark and intelligent, studied for a long moment. "We recognize strength when we see it. We recognize an apex predator. The galaxy belongs to your kind now, human. We submit to your authority." Shook her head. "We don't want your submission. We want peace. Go back to your space beyond the rim. Stay there. Leave the Council alone. Do that and we'll leave you alone too." The matriarch seemed confused. "You won. Why do you not conquer us?" "Because conquest isn't the point," said, feeling bone-deep tired. "Survival is. The galaxy survives, your species survives, everyone goes home, that's victory enough. They agreed, the war ended. But as watched the enemy fleet jump away into the darkness, she couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Humanity had saved the galaxy. They had proven themselves in the fire of war. They had become heroes to the Council species. But at what cost? And what would the galaxy expect from them now? She would find out soon enough. Part 3. 5 years after the war ended, Ambassador walked through the gardens of Council Station and tried to understand how everything had changed so completely. The garden looked the same as it always had, bioluminescent flowers from, singing trees from, water features that gravity. But the feeling of the place had transformed. Humans walked the paths now, not just diplomats and traders but soldiers, engineers, scientists, teachers. They were everywhere, integrated into every aspect of Council life, and wherever they went, other species deferred to them. Had spent months trying to understand why. The Council had never formally elevated humanity to a position of authority. There had been no vote, no ceremony, no official transfer of power. Yet somehow, gradually, inevitably, humanity had become the center around which everything else. He found Sarah sitting by one of the fountains, watching the water dance in the low gravity. She had been promoted to admiral after the war, but had chosen to return to diplomatic service. She looked older than she should. The war had aged her in ways that went beyond years. Ambassador said, settling into a resting posture near her, "I hope I'm not intruding." Smiled, "Never an intrusion, old friend. What's on your mind?" Gestured with two of his four arms, a sign of confusion in his culture. "I'm trying to understand what has happened to the Council. 5 years ago, we were the authority in this galaxy. We had been for now." He trailed off, unsure how to continue. "Now we're in charge," finished for him. "And you want to know how that happened?" "Yes." Was quiet for a moment, watching the water. "Do you know what an alpha is, in animal behavior?" "I'm familiar with the concept. The dominant member of a social group." "Right, and do you know how an alpha maintains their position?" "Considered through strength, aggression." Shook her head. "That's a common misconception. Real alphas in wolf packs, in primate groups, in any successful social species, maintain their position through competence and the willingness to bear responsibility. The alpha doesn't dominate. The alpha protects. The alpha makes decisions when others can't. The alpha takes on burdens that would break anyone else." She looked at directly. "Your species, all the Council species, you evolved as prey or cooperative herbivores. You're brilliant, peaceful, creative. But when you look at humans, something deep in your biology recognizes what we are. Pack predators, persistence hunters, the kind of species that leads through strength tempered with care. You're saying we submit to you instinctively." "I'm saying you trust us to do what you can't," said gently. "When pirates raid trade routes, you call human security forces. When territorial disputes threaten violence, you ask human mediators to intervene. When a new threat emerges, you look to humanity first. Not because we're smarter or better, but because we're willing to do the hard things. The dangerous things. The things that would traumatize your species, but that we've been doing for 10,000 years. Felt a chill run through him. She was right. He had seen it happen hundreds of times. A crisis would emerge, and before any council member could even suggest a solution, they would all turn to whatever human was in the room. It wasn't conscious. It wasn't planned. It just happened. "Does this bother you?" he asked. "Being thrust into leadership you didn't ask for." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Bother me? It's killing us. We came to the stars hopping to learn, to grow, to meet species that could teach us how to be better. Instead, we became the galaxy's police force, the galaxy's army, the galaxy's crisis managers." She stood and walked to the edge of the fountain. "Do you know how many human soldiers have died since the war ended? Thousands. Fighting pirates, fighting raiders, fighting breakaway factions and territorial disputes and a dozen other threats that the Council used to handle through diplomacy. But now that there's a military option, everyone wants us to solve problems the quick way, the violent way, the human way. Stood as well, moving to join her. I didn't realize. Most people don't. They see humanity as strong, confident, born for this. What they don't see is the cost. His voice grew quieter. We never wanted to be the alpha. We wanted to be equals, partners, friends. But the galaxy needed guardians, and we were the only ones capable of being that. So we shoulder the burden, because that's what Earth made us capable of doing. Before could respond, an alarm began to sound throughout the station. Both of them turned toward the nearest comm panel as an emergency message appeared. Unknown vessels had been detected at the edge of Council space. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Their signatures didn't match any known species. They were coming from the same direction that had emerged from 5 years ago. Something worse was coming. Within hours, Council Station was in chaos. Species representatives flooded the emergency chamber, talking over each other, proposing plans that ranged from immediate evacuation to hopeful first contact attempts, but watched carefully and saw what he had seen 5 years ago. Every alien in the room kept glancing toward the humans, waiting for them to take charge, waiting for them to know what to do. Admiral stood at a tactical display with a team of human officers. He looked grim as he studied the incoming data. Whatever they are, they're big, capital ships at minimum, advanced technology. They're not trying to hide. They want us to see them coming. Could it be the returning? Someone asked. Shook his head. Wrong ship types, wrong formation patterns. This is someone new. He paused. Someone who's been watching us, who saw what happened last time and decided to come anyway. The chamber fell silent. Council member pulsed a deep, terrified purple. What do we do? Every eye turned to, then to the other humans in the room. Saw it happen in real time. Saw the moment his people, his culture, his civilization of 12,000 years surrendered their fear and their doubt to the humans. Saw them transform from equals into followers, from partners into something that looked uncomfortably like subjects. Saw it too. He could tell by the way her shoulders slumped slightly, by the resignation in her eyes, but she didn't refuse the burden. She never refused. We do what we always do, said, her voice cutting through the panic. We gather intelligence, we prepare our defenses, we try diplomacy first, and if diplomacy fails, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The preparations began immediately. Human strategic doctrine was implemented across all Council fleets. Human officers took command positions. Human soldiers deployed to critical systems. It happened smoothly, efficiently, without resistance. Because everyone knew humanity was the only species equipped to handle this. 3 weeks later, the unknown vessels reached the border of Council space. They made no attempt to communicate. They simply waited, their weapons powered but not targeting anything. Led the first contact team personally. She took a small ship, unarmed and painted with diplomatic colors, and approached the alien fleet alone, insisted on accompanying her. If this goes wrong, he said, you'll need a witness, someone who can tell the others what happened. Didn't argue. They flew together into the shadow of the massive alien vessels. The beings that greeted them called themselves the Dominion. They were unlike anything the Council had ever encountered, machine intelligences that had evolved from organic creators long dead. They had been watching the galaxy for, they explained, watching and judging. We do not conquer primitive species, the Dominion spokesperson said. Its voice was cold, synthesized. We absorb them. We integrate their technology, their culture, their biological distinctiveness into our collective. It is the natural evolution of all intelligent life. Listened carefully. Then she asked, and what happens to the individuals, the people you absorb? They cease to be individuals. They become part of something greater, something perfect. That's a no then, said. We're not interested. The Dominion spokesperson tilted its head. You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. This is an inevitability. We have absorbed 17 civilizations. Some resisted. All failed. You will join us. The only question is how much suffering occurs first. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was the same smile had seen 5 years ago, before the Battle of Tertian IV. The smile that said humanity had accepted another burden. You've been watching us, said. You saw what happened with so let me be very clear about what you're walking into. The species in this galaxy are peaceful, creative, kind. They've built a civilization based on cooperation and mutual respect. They're beautiful and they're worth protecting. She leaned forward. And we're the ones who protect them. We're the apex predators of this galaxy. We're the ones who do the hard things, the violent things, the impossible things that nobody else can do. You want to absorb the council species. You'll have to go through humanity first. We have absorbed predator species before, the Dominion said. They all fell eventually. Maybe, admitted. Maybe you'll beat us. Maybe you'll absorb every human in the galaxy. But I promise you this, we will make you pay for every meter of space you take. We will make you remember why Earth was classified as a Class 12. We will teach you what it means to fight a species that has spent 10,000 years learning how to survive against impossible odds. She stood. Go back to wherever you came from. Leave this galaxy alone. Because if you force us to fight you, we won't stop until one of us is extinct. And we've gotten very good at making sure it's not us. The Dominion spokesperson studied her silently. Then, surprisingly, it laughed. You are remarkable, individually weak, yet collectively unstoppable. We will consider your words. The alien fleet to the edge of the system. They remained there watching, waiting. Back on Council Station, found standing in the same garden where they had talked 3 weeks earlier. She looked more tired than ever. They'll come back, said without preamble. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but they'll come back, and when they do, we'll have to stop them. I know, said quietly, and we will look to humanity to lead us, just as we always do. Turn to face him. Is this really what you want? For your civilization to become dependent on us, to defer to us, to surrender your autonomy bit by bit until we're not partners anymore but protectors? Considered the question carefully. It was something he had been thinking about for 5 years. I think, he said slowly, that every civilization makes choices about what kind of species they want to be. The Council chose peace, chose cooperation, chose to build a society where violence was unnecessary. That choice gave us 12,000 years of prosperity, of art and science and culture, of lives lived without fear. He gestured with all 4 arms. But that choice also made us vulnerable. When real threats emerged, we were helpless. We would have been destroyed, absorbed, enslaved. Your species saved us not once but twice. And yes, that has changed the dynamic between us. You are the alpha now. We defer to you. We depend on you. We surrender our fear to you. And that doesn't bother you? Asked. It terrifies me, admitted. But less than the alternative, because I've watched your species for 5 years, Admiral. I've seen the burden you carry. I've seen the sacrifices you make. I've seen how much it costs you to be what we need you to be. And I've seen that you do it anyway. Not because you want to dominate us, but because you care, because you're capable of protecting us, because you're willing.